welcome back to Conversations with Your Commissioner. I think, guys, I don't even have to say it by now. You know who I am. The shirt says it. Oh, the shirt says it. I am your Commissioner Delonte Smith. And ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else is joining us today, we're hitting on the elites. Okay. And yet again, today, we're going to talk to another elite owner here in the BFBA. Today, we're talking to none other than team owner of Trader Danny himself, Mr. Kyle Knapp. Now, let me give you some insight about this gentleman, okay? This gentleman I have known for well over 20 years, went to high school with him. This guy, in his second season, was a BFBA champion. So before I give you any more insight, let's bring him in. Kyle, how are you, sir? Welcome to Conversations with Your Commissioner.
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an honor, sir. Not many people know the history between us. We go back many, many years. I mean, we started in high school in small Citrus County, Florida, to now be here, be in the complex, you in your home, and having an opportunity to be able to sit down. This is fantastic, sir. So once again, thank you. And let's get started.
Let's dive in. I'm ready. I've been ready.
Right. Many people have been saying that. So let's actually see if you're ready, sir. We've talked about it, or we're going to talk about it. Let me say that. Having been in the league for 5 seasons, how would you describe your evolution as a fantasy basketball team owner?
I think every year I grow. Basketball is probably the one sport I could never play. Still to this day, can't do it at all. But like many people that have an eye for sports in general, I can pick it up with my brain. I can dissect plays, players, eye for talent, and it translates to fantasy, real life and fantasy. So while I can't play basketball, I'm pretty damn good at evaluating talent and understanding the game in its own right. And I think that's helped me a lot. I've watched, obviously, year over year, a lot more basketball, gone to a lot of live games, studied. I'm very analytical. I think I've shown that in many, many heated debates and chats. And, I pride myself on that. And that helps me too, because, like any sport, basketball has become very analytically driven. Even if it's become a more offensively driven sport, it's still extremely analytical, and that helps me in my evolution as a fantasy basketball team owner.
That's really interesting. And the only reason I say it's interesting is because, as we're in the WhatsApp, we keep talking about the WhatsApp, right? There's this thing that, everybody's competitive, and not saying that you're not competitive, but to be honest and say, hey, look, I don't play hoops. I'm not shooting them, but I'm picking the guys that are going to win the championship for me. I think that's a first here in the BFBA conversations. So let's talk about it really quick. I'm just going to cut right to it. Mm-hmm. What do you think has contributed most to your impressive overall record of 72, 21, and 2? Sorry.
So, I mean, outside of what we just discussed analytically, I think it's having the balls to be very risky. I'm bold with my moves. I don't care about the criticisms. I don't care about the outside noise. I'm going to make that bold trade. I'm going to give up. I'll sacrifice my future if I know I can win now. I'll put pedal to the metal. I'll throttle it full out until the wheels fall off. And I mean, and it's worked, quite a bit up until this point. I'm always open to amending the approach, but in not just in basketball, but in any sport I've played fantasy wise, it's what's gotten me to be as successful as I have been. And I see no reason to change that now.
I agree. I'm going to give some insight, because I mean, it's you and me, and this is our conversation.
Yep.
You and I have actually had a lot of conversations offline, via phone, year after year, of the evolution of the league.
Yes.
And we've discussed from formats and things, how we've changed things and we've made things more official. So though you are not an SLC member, sir, I value your opinion and want to, thank you, because the growth of the league and the evolution of the Trader Danny team, I think is really, it's been shown, and you can see like, hey man, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I do want to ask a question. I don't have one for you. I'm
Sure.
sorry, I don't have a written formatted question for you, but we started as Team Knapp, right? Kyle
Mhm.
Knapp, last name, and then we moved to Trader Danny. What was the inspiration, or what drove you to want to become Trader Danny?
That's a fantastic question. I've never been quite the one for personas, so to speak, when it comes to fantasy teams. I've always been me. But as this league has evolved, as I've had a lot of, I would like to think it is valuable input to the growth of the league because, I love to see something like this expand and grow the way that it has. And I appreciate you for wanting to always have those ears to listen because I think it is important, to hear everybody. It doesn't matter if you utilize everything that you hear, but it's important to hear everything. So I needed to kind of embody something a little bit more than just myself. And I didn't think there was anything better than kind of embodying the Danny Ainge persona of BFBA. He has the same mentality as myself. He's stubborn. He's hard headed. He's not gonna budge on his offer. I mean, look at the way he handled the Laurie Markkinen trade discussions in the offseason. He's going to put it out there. You're going to pay me the value, or I'm going to keep my player. You're the one that's going to be shut out of luck if you don't deal with me. That's all there is to it. So I kind of had to, I had to put my stamp on myself, so to speak.
I stamp approved, sir. I think that's for many teams, have different names and things like that. And when we made the transition into Trader Danny, I feel as that it's kind of evolved, into definitely a persona that carries well in the BFBA and the WhatsApp, to that we all know that Kyle is Trader Danny, right? It's
Yep.
fantastic. Um, Congratulations, sir. You are a champion, right? There's five of us. We
Mhm.
have Cedric, we have Donald, we have Damien, Holly, myself. Sorry, there's six of us. So that we're only so many.
An elite group.
Right, exactly, an elite group. Because if you're getting yourself a jacket, you're getting one of these on there, right? Or
Hmm.
you're hanging this on the wall. This goes to you, sir, as you know, but you won a BFBA championship in 2021. What would you say are the key factors that contributed to your success? And I've asked this to other owners, but where are we on that road back to another BFBA championship?
I love two-part questions. 2021, it's crazy. We're going on almost 4 years ago. It feels like it was just yesterday. That was probably one of the most elite runs I've ever had in basketball. And those runs are hard to replicate. It doesn't matter if it's fantasy or real life. Those runs are pretty magical. Health first and foremost went right for me. I didn't have a single stud or star that went down for longer than a week or two, and that's hard to find. That I really probably should have played the lottery in real life with how lucky I got. But I mean, the second part of the success really is just shrewd moves and just kind of starting to really embody that persona of Trader Danny. And I didn't really know who that was at the time. I knew who I was and the way that I've always played fantasy sports. So, I think that year, that championship year, it was my evolution into Trader Danny. I just didn't know it at the time. So I think those two factors are what really led to my success that year.
Yeah, because I mean the patch still says Team Nap, so
Mhm.
I think that makes an excellent point. Let me share a little insight here that the league doesn't know. And I want to get your opinion on why this was a decision that you all decided to make. The 2021 finals comes down to Shake and Bake, Jose, and you. You guys get together and call me and decide that you guys are going to split the winnings 50-50. Normally it's a 90-10 split. 90 goes to the winner, 10 goes to second place.
Mhm.
Why? What was the thought in wanting to be like, hey, you know what? I think I got this. So I'm willing to split this money 50-50.
Another fantastic question. And believe it or not, as fiery and as competitive as I am, it's not really about the money for me. It's about the title. I believe at that point in the year, again, no matter what sport it is, especially fantasy basketball, any injury can happen. Any benching could take place. Less minutes could be played, and
Mhm.
I mean, so be it. If that happens and you don't win the ship, you don't win the ship. But, you know, everybody can make a little bit of money, and that's kind of what I always follow. No matter what championship or final I go with, I'm always going to offer a split. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be offered as a split. To me, it's not about the money. Money's a nice bonus. Don't get me wrong. I love money. But, when I'm in leagues like this, it's far more about the championship than it is the money. So I believe, hey, let's both walk out of there with a little bit of cash in our pocket, but let's still go for it for bragging rights.
I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, you guys are fighting for this guy, right? You're fighting for the chip.
Mhm.
And to kind of say, let's split the money, right? We both win in this situation because the real winner is the one who comes out of there with that trophy. So I commend you on that. I've never told you that, but I thought that was kind of cool. And I'm actually, now that it's out, right? The cat's out of the
Yeah.
bag. We'll see how many owners will go forward and do it in the same style that you guys did. But like, it was nice to see before this conversation who else would do that. And so far, you and Jose were the only two that decided
hmm
to go for a 50-50 split.
It's quite
So,
unconventional. It's not followed in a lot of leagues, but like I said, I believe hey, everybody's at the table. Let's all eat together, but let's still go for the bragging rights. Let's go for the trophy. That's what we're here for.
yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, he got some money, but he didn't get one of these, right?
Amen. That's right.
So we've talked about the championship. Let's talk about this season. Your team is currently sitting at 3-4. What do you think has been the biggest challenge for Trader Danny so far?
I mean, I think it's twofold. Number one, injuries. I mean, everybody's had it. Everybody in the league is dealing with it. I don't think there's not been one team that has not been severely impacted by some kind of monumental injury, if not multiple. And it's not just 3 to 5 days. Like, it's been weeks. I mean, hell, first game into the season, DeJounte Murray is out for 4 to 6 weeks. Right off the bat, I made some really bold moves to get younger in the offseason, set myself up to contend now and, for the next 5 to 10 in Dynasty. And that happens. And, you just kind of have to roll with the punches, just like they do in real life and every other owner has. So that's definitely been a contributing factor. And then, some of my moves didn't pay off. You can't have a perfect clean record when you're an aggressive trader. And this year it didn't pay off. A couple of my early moves kind of bit me in the ass, and I kind of over evaluated. One that still is kind of rubbing me wrong is going after Moses Moody. I've tracked Golden State quite a bit. They've been really hard in on their young players. They dished out 40 million over 3 years to Moody. I understand the NBA can kind of overpay some role players, but this guy's an elite 3-point shooter. You trade Klay Thompson in the offseason. You give this guy an extension. You're reading the tea leaves. You're following everything, and it's like, okay, this guy's gonna play 22 to 29 minutes a game off the bench. He doesn't even need to start. As long as he's getting those shots in, and they just haven't done it. They're still giving heavy minutes to Draymond, who probably needs to retire at this point in his career. He's more mouth and problem than he is contributor to a team. And Kevon Looney is still playing right along there with him. I mean, it's those boneheaded moves in real life that kind of burn you sometimes in fantasy, and that really kind of set me back on top of the other injuries. So you live and you learn. Those are the risks you take when you're an aggressive trader, and I think I've recouped some good value. I've made a couple of better trades to kind of help myself along. Losing Chet and quickly the way that I did, though, that's that's still a big dent. That's a hard thing to overcome. You can't replace those. It doesn't matter what trade you make or, what hot free agent you pick up, or, we're in a 14-team dynasty. You're going to play that waiver wire all year long to even recoup 1/3 of the value you lost in those players. So it may be the year, it may not. I mean, we got a lot of time left. But that's why I'm kind of playing both sides. I'm still playing for the future, but I also still have some good, strong vets that could maybe help keep me afloat till quickly and check come back. Or I could do what I did in the offseason. I could turn around and find the right deal and deal those vets for more young guys, organize my 7 keepers, stack some picks, and just go out again next year. There's nothing wrong with taking a year off if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, we'll get to the trades a little bit later in the conversation. But I do want to say, I mean, at 3 and 4, we're only in week 8, and the standings are really close. If you're listening to the deep dive, where we are in our standings, right? So 1-2 games, you're sitting in 3rd or 4th place, right?
Listen, you don't have to have a great record to get into the playoffs. You just got to be hot in the playoffs. You could limp into the playoffs and go on a magical run. And that's why I haven't sold off. That's why I haven't given up.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a little bit of more of a different approach than I have in recent seasons because it's so wide open because of all the injuries right now.
Exactly. That makes you make a great point. I mean, if you go back and listen to the conversation that I had with the Evil Empire, Damian Palacios, he talks about his first championship. He came into the playoffs in 6th place and won. At that time, we were only a 6-team playoff, right? So you practically are thinking that you're the first one out, and you wind up going on a run. Hey, keep at it. You definitely can turn that team around, whether it's injury or whether it's trades. I mean, we've seen it once before. Next question. In your opinion, what are the main differences between this season and previous seasons? I mean, you've talked about it a little, but are there any particulars that you can say, like, yeah, I'm not doing that, or I am doing that, or I wasn't doing that last season?
I think this year, for all the chatter and the fun shit talking and the banter back and forth in WhatsApp, I think I've gotten more analytical this year outside of embodying my persona as Trader Danny and really letting that become my ownership group, right? The way that I run my team, the way that I handle the day to day. I've just become even deeper analytically. I look because you have to. Again, we're a 14-team dynasty. We're going to 16, I believe, maybe 18, depending on how the SLC votes and the input we get from the league. So pickings are going to get even slimmer coming into next year. And if this last year's draft was any indication, I mean, if you get a weak draft and you're only getting guys that are picked in the top 12 of the real life NBA draft that are only averaging 10 to 20 fantasy points per game in this league, you gotta be really, really sharp with how you're evaluating the players you're going to pick up and add to your roster. And that's what's changed for me this year. You put the record aside and the risks that I've taken, I think it's helped me and to acquire the talent. It was tough to make that decision to move on from Jokic. I mean, the man is a stud. He does everything you want to lead you to a championship, but one guy can't carry your team in a league like this. And that's what same thing with Giannis. And again, obviously, we'll dive in deeper on that in a little bit. But I looked at those two situations and I'm like, I can't rely on one to carry me. I lost 3 in a row with Giannis. One guy can't carry you in this league. So I've gotten more analytical in the way that I evaluate things.
That's very insightful. I think certain people, and we won't go into particulars or any names, but there are certain teams that are holding on to that 1 or 2 player because they believe that it's like I can still build my team around those guys, and we've said it. We've said it to other teams. Certain teams can have all-star players on their team, but that team is built for the regular season.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
the moment that they've made the playoffs or they're hurt or they're out of the MVP race, right? Now we're shutting down, a really good Lonzo on a Chicago, right? Like, they're going to shut them down. Chicago's
Absolutely.
The same thing with LaMelo Ball or something. Those types of players that they're great players, but there are other players that are out there that a Kobe White, right? So certain names that we can throw out there. We can go for days. Let's talk about some trades though. Okay. How do you how do you I mean, I know it says that you elaborate. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Let's I want to ask this question, but there's something else that I want to do. Okay. I'm gonna do something special here. So
I love it.
We just talked about Jokic, right? I'm gonna give you a little insight. So Jokic used to be with the Korean Soul Brothers. He has a conversation with me when Jokic gives up the triple-double season. Tells me, this is Felton Kitchen, Jokic won't have a season like this again. I'm going to trade him away, right? Ends up to you, 100 points, throwing up the 100 points. Giannis, we have to move away from because he's on Randy's team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have Giannis because Giannis was with Embiid. Embiid is now gone. Giannis is now gone. So now we have two all-star MVP players that have gone from two teams that have now arrived on your team. They're not on the same team at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to the question. How do you evaluate potential trades? And we just talked about some. Can you share any memorable trade moments from your time in the league?
So I'm going to lead with the second part of the question first. And it's always going to be the Jokic and Tatum deal. It was, no one saw it coming. I mean, maybe outside of Felt having that conversation with you, no one saw that move coming. I honestly didn't see that move coming. I truly didn't. I did not think the trigger was going to get pulled. I was going to take my shot no matter what. I mean, the worst I'm told is no, and I'll move right along. But that led me almost to the finals, but I got stopped by Holly on her epic run. And I mean, hats off to her for finishing and crushing that thing out. But and some untimely injuries happened that year, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But it was well worth it because I was so deep with my roster, and I honestly, I think I would say I lucked into the trade a little bit because Felt, and I didn't know that, honestly, with you sharing that with me, I didn't know that was the reason that Felt, wanted to trade him away, because obviously I think if Felt had a mulligan, that trade would never go down, ever. And we live and we learn, it's one of those things. But yeah, that was a memorable moment because I really thought I had championship number two. Not only in the moment when I made that deal, but then when I couldn't be beat. Like I was just bam, 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 win after win after win. And even in the beginning of the playoffs, even though I don't remember who got injured right around the beginning of the playoffs for me, off the top of my head. But even with that, I won my first match. So I'm like, I'm sitting pretty, I'm golden. And then bam, another injury happened. And then, the rest is history. But that will always be my most memorable moment because I really thought it was bringing me championship number two in short order.
And to the first part of the question, like, how do you evaluate your potential trades?
And that's been part of my evolution. I didn't always pay attention to the way the scoring in this league worked. I went for the best value that I could get. That would obviously favor me. Let's be honest. Let's broaden the scope of the answer here. Everybody tries to fleece everyone at the beginning of a trade negotiation. It happens in fantasy, and it damn sure happens in real life. You're going to start high, so you have a floor to come down to. That's just the realistic nature of it. It's not personal. Everyone's just trying to win the deal. That's it. So with that being said, I was always out to fleece, didn't care about your feelings. I wanted to win the trade. I want to win. I didn't care about being fair. And over time, I've gotten better about looking at both sides because it's better to have some kind of common ground than just multiple enemies in the league, because then you can never trade with anybody. So I've gotten much better about that. But specifically this year and last year, I really drilled into the scoring. And I mean, obviously we've always known this league caters to big men, double doubles, adding in the blocks and the steals. It can reward you. Look at what Giannis and Jokic do.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm doing a trade negotiation and I've got a big man, I'm going to use Vooch as an example because this conversation just happened in WhatsApp the other night. If I've got Vooch on the table and he can be a walking 50-point double double almost every night in and out, someone's going to pay for that value. I mean, you have to. You can't ignore what is out there. I mean, you can, and we won't make a deal, and that's okay. I can't force you. I can't put a gun to your head, but you can't sit there and sell me on a guard that's averaging 24 to 32 fantasy points per game, and he doesn't do double doubles. This league while the league rewards counting stats and steals and blocks and three pointers. Double doubles are where it's at. When you can double double and add counting stats, there's a lot of value enriched in that to pay for, and you have to pay for it. That's why no one will come off of bigs, in this league unless they're going to get overpaid. And I realize that, and even not just bigs, but any wing that can put up double doubles with counting stats, on a consistent basis, you got to pay for it. So I've really just dove into the numbers a lot harder than I ever have these last 2 years. And that's going to be the basis for my trades. This isn't a $20 redraft buy-in league. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, some of these trades are still modeling after that, which is fine. That those are their owners. That's how they want to do the deal. But if I'm involved in trade negotiations with you, I'm going to try to find my best way to find common ground, even if I'm starting high and going low. But we're going to get on the same page with this league, or there's not a deal to be had.
There's the sham god owner in me will be honest, because we're having an honest conversation. From what you said, from the lowballing and the things like that, there was a time when the sham gods didn't do business with Trader Danny. The deal would come across the table and I would be done. Right? I'm just gonna hit that. I don't care
for
what
sure.
it is. But it is a negotiation tactic of my own that we all have, right? I and you say you bring some real good value to this conversation, because you've given insight to what a lot of owners will do, and what some owners have noticed, and it has not been a benefit to them is if you beat your chest a little bit too much in this league, nobody wants to trade with you.
Yep.
And you're left standing in the desert, right? Where everybody's having fun around you and deals are being made around you, and you can't get a deal. I've been that person a good bit of times where, it's the phone's ringing, but it's not in my house. Right. You hear it all around you, but it's not, no one's calling your phone.
Yeah.
But it's how we interact with the league. And some people will say, oh, well, you don't have the players that I want. But that's not true. No. Everybody has the player that you want.
Anybody can be had for the right price. Anybody. I don't care who they are. Anybody can be bought. Anybody can. It's how you go about it. And like I said, I can admit, I was young and dumb, I guess, is a good old adage to go back to, when I started in this league. And I've evolved everywhere, and I can self-reflect. I was, I just didn't care. I didn't care. But, I realized as I've gotten older, as I've grown in this league, as I've grown closer to all of you in the league, I can't do that. So 3 years ago, I really decided to kind of have that self-reflection and try to do my best to improve year in and year out, to not be that guy.
Well, I mean, I think it's brought you playoffs. You've made the playoffs every season that you've been in the league. You've been here for 5 seasons. You made the playoffs for 5 seasons. You have 3 top 3 finishes. So great ratios, so the numbers don't lie. I would say in your favor. Some in the league may hate me for saying that, but hey, I mean, a fact is a fact. But as we get to the league, who would you say has been your biggest competitor within the BFBA?
This is probably my favorite question of this whole interview. And it's changed. it's changed. So when I started, it was Damian, hands down, and he was a quiet competitor, and I think I appreciated that the most because, excuse me, it was we were elite, we were healthy, and it was that unspoken respect and confidence of each other, and maybe even sometimes ignorance, that kept that battle going back and forth. And competition doesn't always have to be loud. It can be quiet, and that's probably been my most favorite competitor. In this league is Damien. Him and I don't talk a whole lot. And he doesn't talk a ton in the league. And you guys obviously have a lot more history than I do with him. But shout out to him. It's he definitely he helped sharpen me with my competitiveness in this league early on. So I appreciate him for that. The last couple of years it's shifted. I would say I probably have two, if I'm being honest right now. Damien's definitely coming back. I'm not quite there on his level this year, but I think it'll always be there. That quiet unspokenness with him and I will always be there, and I'll always have affinity and respect and appreciation for that. Randy, listen, I I love my guy. I love my guy. He reminds me of me 5 years ago when I came into this league. Bold, brazen, doesn't give a shit, says everything off cuff. And, you got to respect somebody for that. I mean, I do because I used to be that guy. And some people will change. Some people will always be that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love the competitiveness and the fire that he brings to the table. But for, this year excluded, the last 2 years, him and I, like cutthroat, back to back,
Yeah.
he was it 100%.
Yeah. Many people know this about me. I'm a basketball fan, right? But I'm a huge wrestling fan. This is not my conversation, but the rivalry that I have with the Evil Empire, so the Sham Gods and the Evil Empire, is on a whole nother level. It is beyond stats. It has gone farther than that. There's a deeper passion between that rivalry that maybe one day we can have a deeper discussion. We sit on the Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. We started this league. We were the beginnings, but I would say that you and Randy have become the Rock and Stone Cold. If we were giving analogies, and as I said, I am a wrestling fan. It is the new age rivalry.
Yes.
We tune in, we love it, and I kind of think we're growing a new one here with the deals that we're doing with Travis, and now we there's some combativeness back and forth, and it's all in good fun. Right,
I love it.
All in great fun. But I mean, it's when the score is settled at the end of the week during the matchup. It says a lot whether you were physically playing or not. It says a lot to what will go forth for the rest of the season. So prepare yourself because these have now become battles rather than just matchups, sir.
I welcome it.
So as the season progresses, we've talked a lot. What are the goals for Trader Danny moving forward?
I don't quite have a full-fledged answer for that because really it's evolving on a week-to-week basis. It's hard to sit here and tell you what my ultimate goal is. I mean, I want to win a championship. I mean, that's always the ultimate goal. But at some point, you kind of have to have a realistic view of it too, that it may not be attainable, because of mitigating factors. I'm not at that point yet, nowhere close to it. But that's definitely in the back of my mind, considering the heavy injuries that I've taken. But maybe I'm lucky. Chet comes back mid-January, quickly comes back beginning of January. Obviously this is all best case scenario. And then I go on a run. Ideally that's what I would love. And then, I can then, those heated rivalries, brew back up, and, I'm pedal to the metal, ready to go forward. But, if it doesn't quite go that way, then trade deadline, I'll be active and I'll be planning for the future and seeing what's available out there for me. I've got a lot of draft picks. I'm either going to have a first rounder and 3 second rounders in this upcoming draft, or I'm going to have 2 first and 2 second, depending on how the trade protection works from the deal I did with Sed in the beginning of the year. So I'm set up extremely well in next year's draft already. And I still have a lot of movable pieces that end up falling out of contention. I don't want to fall out, but sometimes it's out of your control. So I'll take it on a week by week basis. I'll stay competitive. I'll stay aggressive, and we'll see what happens. That's kind of my goal, week by week at this point.
Excellent. Yet again, I said it last week. I said it the week before. I said it the week before that. Excellent insight. This man just dropped some more jewels because, and I'm gonna recap and what we just talked about, right? Not shutting it down, and not saying that this is what you're saying, but the context of I'm not shutting it down, but I'm evaluating. And if this isn't my year, I'm gonna really look into that and plan for next season because it's a keepers league, right? You're building yourself a dynasty. I mean, you just talked about your pick, the where your trade your pick trade protection and where it's going to fall, whether it's within or out. And don't hold me to this, but I believe that it has fallen within the first round.
It has.
So right. So I mean, look at that. I mean, if you're listening, right? If you're watching this, and I know a lot of owners are, what we're talking about here is what you owners that are out there that are thinking every year's my year, right? You're buying in to every superstar that you can. You're redoing your team every single season. You may get lucky, but you probably won't. And you have to look out for teams like Trader Danny and the Brooklyn Stoop Kids and the Evil Empire that are Vala Margulis. These teams are building dynasties. They're building players overall over season after season, and they're making decisions like Kyle just said of like, I'm gonna shut it down. Right? I'm smart enough, and I can put my ego aside and say, I don't have to trade my whole team away. I can sit back. I can wait for next season. Maybe I'll make the playoffs and do something well, or maybe, hey, I'll be in the NIT and, I'll be fighting for 5 to 6 lottery balls. I mean, that's huge.
Yep.
That's huge. So I commend that, sir. Man, I've loved the conversation. I love talking to all of you. This is a real enjoyable moment of my day when I get to sit down and have this conversation with you guys. But I've asked this to other owners. I'm going to ask to you. What's been the most enjoyable part of the BFBA community, and how would you describe the competition among owners? Competitiveness, competition.
Yeah. I mean, I love, for me, it's two things, and I guess I'm greedy in this. I love that competitive. I love how competitive it's gotten. It's grown year over year. You don't have people phoning it in, even though sometimes decisions are questionable. But like it's nonstop. Every week, every day, it's nonstop, and I love the banter. I love to shit talk with the best of them. It is fun. It adds a layer that really you can't meet in a lot of other leagues. What this league has become is reminiscent of the association. And I know from talking to you when I first joined, this has always been your vision to grow this to where you have. And I commend you for that, because this is a lot. I mean, I'm a commissioner in, a couple of baseball leagues and football leagues, and I do the bare minimum. I don't go anywhere close to the level that you have. So I commend you for this. And I love the commitment that you've wanted to give to this, because look at what it's brought us. It's brought us so much that a normal fantasy player wouldn't even begin to dream would be possible. And I love the fact that it's so reminiscent of the association. It's like it's real. And I think that's what we all crave. That's why we're all in this league, and that's why we have constant input. And I'd love to see it grow the way that it has.
Yeah, I thank you, sir, for the kind words. I've said it week after week. This is it's my baby, but in a sense, I've allowed you all to hold it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to share it with you all and then allow it to become yours as well. Um, we are as great as we are because of who we are and who's in this league. I didn't watch much of the league and the association, so for me, this is all just homegrown.
Yeah.
This is genuine, and it comes, this is the brainchild of mine, but it's conversations that come from you all. These conversations lead to other things. As I said in episode 2, Donald Horton was the person who came up with this idea, and here we are.
Yeah.
Right. So to have the conversation come from another owner, to bring such great ideas, we're dipping our foot into some AI generated things as well. We introduced Janet Turner, director of media, today. We have others, staff members that are going to come from the complex to you all. But it's all in great fun. I love it, and I'm glad that you do as well. So I appreciate that, and continue to give me the ideas, and we're gonna grow this thing. We're gonna where it takes us, only God may know, or whoever you worship. But man, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun while we're doing it.
I couldn't agree more.
I got one more question for you, not to you. One more question for you, coming to you. We've talked about it a little bit. I've asked other owners. 2025, 2026, we're expanding. The SLC Senior League Committee approved 2. So we're going to 2 more teams, League of 16. As I broke news last week, we're going to break up into 4 conferences. So we'll now have conference championships. So those top 4 from each from each 4 conferences will hold the top 4 spots, and then the other will come from best records.
Sure.
What advice would you give a new fantasy owner that wants to be competitive within this league?
Patience. You got to have patience, and you don't do what I did when I first started. I got lucky enough to where we hadn't evolved quite as much as we have now. We were a smaller league. It was a little bit easier to acquire players. It was slightly reminiscent of redraft, but it was still a keeper type league. You don't have that luxury coming into this. A lot of the top talent is gonna be gone. You're gonna have to start from scratch, and you got to draft smart. You really got to study, know your scoring, but be patient, and understand there's going to be plenty of teams like myself. I won't name other names that are going to come and and try to lowball you a little bit because we want to test you. We want to see how good you really are. Are you fit for this? 14 teams is nothing to sneeze at, let alone 16. So come prepared, be ready, and just have fun with it. Don't take it too personally. We like to talk a lot of shit. We'd like to have fun here. Don't take it too personally, but be ready because this won't be easy for you. It'll be a challenge. Welcome the challenge.
That's some excellent information. I mean, that you're absolutely correct. I've never piggybacked on anybody's information, but or I guess advice, but I do want to say, like, you really have given yet again some insightful information, because we, as the 14 owners, are going to be required to drop 4 players. That's it. You have a team of 15 currently. You'll go down to 11, and then at the required time, we'll go down to 7. So they're only drafting 7 players, right?
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting, one, who Trader Danny and other owners are going to drop. But you make a very valid point that, like, that new owner, you got to be patient, because you may find some jewels in that draft. You may not, but don't give up, because there's some owners out here that definitely want to trade with you. They're going to want, from the day you step in there, they're going to want to do a deal with you. And paciencia y fe, patience and faith, right? I think that's all we can have. Kyle, owner of Trader Danny. Sir, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank you for taking the time out, for allowing me and the complex to come into your home and to sit and to chat with you, man. Sir, thank you. This is I want to applaud you, sir. And any
Thank
last
you.
words for the league before we get out of here?
Well, thank you for for inviting me to this. Like I said, I've gotten to watch every interview you've done, and it's been great to listen to every owner. Some has been wild and outlandish, some has been insightful and just informative to listen to, and it's been great. Really kind of getting to know people without talking to them. So
Yeah.
that's been a fantastic thing to enjoy and explore. Randy's asked though, that's my message to him. I will be coming for that championship. You're not going to be healthy enough. Even if it's not this year, I'm on that ass. So just be ready.
Okay. So I love this because Randy made a dedication from the mob, to everyone, and he says chip or die, right? So we heard it here first, as the rivalry continues. Randy is ass. I didn't say it. It came from Trader Danny. I just want to reiterate. Kyle, thank you, sir. I thank you for taking the time out. This has been fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, from my home to Kyle's, this has been a conversation with your commissioner. Have a good one, brother.
You too, brother.